Welcome back. If you've seen my last video where I tried to pick up this big bike, even though I succeeded in picking it up, I think you can agree with me that it really was a failure. I can't possibly rely on picking the bike up myself in a real situation. But my contention is that the Africa Twin isn't really that heavy. There are many road bikes that are as heavy as this, but no one seems to care about that. Every Harley, for instance, is way heavier than an Africa Twin. Of course, they're not going off-road, so to speak. But even the KTM 1290 is the same weight as the Africa Twin. And weight is an advantage in many situations. The reason I bought this is really as a touring bike with the occasional gravel road. And as a touring bike, weight is an advantage. There's less effect from crosswinds when the bike is heavier. With a bit of weight, the bike sits on the road a lot easier. It's more stable. And really, it's more of a joy to ride because of the weight. It's only when you're in a tricky situation and you find that both feet can't hit the ground that the bike hits the ground first. And that's why today I'm going to attempt to make a bike lift. One of those Ratchet type lifts that lift the bike up. So, how hard can it be? Let's leave the bike and go down the shed and do the build. And then we'll see whether my poor attempt at copying a manufactured one really works in real life.
It's always a good day when there's an excuse to play in the shed. But if you don't want to see an amateur fluffing around building this, go to 17.5 minutes to see the end result. This is the aluminium I'm using, a bit of solid and a bit of round bar, plus I had to buy a ratchet. Of course, every build needs to start with planning, so I'm using my complicated planning system to work it out. I'll make some solid inserts that join up the pieces of tubing. I'll cut out and weld a foot that goes on the bottom piece of tubing, and I'll make a little roller for the strap to roll in. I'm going to have 3 pieces of tube that are 300mm long. For Americans, that's about 12 bananas. I've cut out 3 pieces of aluminium tube, each 300mm, plus a couple of pieces of solid bar for the joiners and another piece for the roller. Now it's over to the lathe to make the joining pieces. I'm setting up the DRO so I know how long and how deep to cut. I'm making the sections that slide into the tube 50mm long. Right, I'm on to the last finishing pass. There's something very satisfying about a tight, slip fit. As I'm putting these pieces together, I'm thinking, I'd like them not to be able to slide out again easily. So it's back into the lathe with the inserts. That'll do nicely. Building the rollers next. A scrap of checker plate will do for the foot. Just need to cut it out. And just to be sure, I'll put these little pieces in to reinforce it. Time for a bit of welding action. I'm just a self-taught hobbyist. My welds aren't pretty, but they are functional. The frame that the roller goes in is next. These aren't pretty welds, but the grinder will fix that right up. This isn't really necessary, but because I can, I'm making the frame nice and square for the roller. The main bits are all finished, but now comes the challenge to attach the ratchet to one of those pieces of tube. That's not going to be straightforward. A bit of cardboard aided design is required here. I'm sure we'll be able to achieve the end result. I'm copying my design from the company called Eastbound, but I'm having my ratchet pushed down to lift rather than lift up to lift. I reckon that's a much more natural way to do the lift. Anyway, you'll see that during the actual lift demonstration. I've got all the pieces built. Time to assemble it and see what it looks like. I didn't show this, but I tapped a thread into the aluminium for this little bolt to go in. to hold the back end of the ratchet. I'm very pleased with how those O-rings work. I wasn't happy with the roller piece pivoting, so I made up a little thumb screw, tapped a thread in the roller, and that'll stop it twisting. Now it's in line with the ratchet. That's much better.
Alrighty then, we have it finished. It looks alright, and with the O-rings it holds itself together. So let's see how it goes.
No, I'm not going to test it on a rocky slope out in the bush. Some nice grass in the front yard for a nice soft landing. As you can see, the whole lift kit fits into my tail bag. Very convenient. Oh, in case you're wondering, the lift kit weighs about 2 kilo. It's not light, but weight's not a problem when you can lift the bike so easily with this. Just wait and see. The strap that holds the ratchet strap is also used to hold the front brake on. I've already put the park brake on for my DCT bike, so both wheels now can't roll. The eastbound bloke, when he does his demo, attaches the strap to the end of the handlebar on the grip. There's no way I'm doing that. That's likely to damage my heated grips at the very least. So I'm doing it like some others have done it and attaching it to the footrest. I reckon that's a much better position. You're probably wondering how much this cost me to build. Well, the ratchet cost nearly $30, including the strap, and the aluminium was about another $30. The labour to build it was $1,000, so I guess you could say this wasn't a cheap build. Just kidding. I'm retired, so my labour's free. Unless, of course, I was building it for someone else, then yeah, it would be $1,000. Well, obviously that strap is going over the seat, and I don't like the look of that, so I'm just going to loosen the strap again and use the bag to protect the seat. That'll work, no problem. It looks like I'm really struggling to lift it with the ratchet, but I'm not really. I'm just taking my time and being careful because this is the first try. There haven't been any rehearsals before this filming. I definitely think pushing down on the ratchet to lift the bike is the way to go. My aluminium tubing assembly is taking the weight without any problem at all. No bending. So I'm thinking this is going to be a success. Ah, the euphoric feeling of a job well done.
Ta-da!
Okay, my original contention that the Africa Twin is not a heavy bike has now been proven, because when I'm travelling alone and I'm using the lift, the bike is not heavy.
Even though I can't pick it up. There are way... No, start again. My contention is that the Africa Twin isn't heavy. There are heaps of... There's less wind. The bike's